If you're old enough to remember when phones had cords and the only thing that went viral was a cold, then you're in the right place. Welcome to the Big 6-0 with Kayley Harris and Guy Rowlison. Because who better to discuss life's second act than two people who still think mature is a type of cheese?
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Well, here we are.
Here we are. We're doing it.
And at a certain point in your life, that's got to be real positive, doesn't it? I mean, not just knowing where you are, but who you're actually speaking with, right? Look, honestly, I know this is a new podcast, but look, if you told me one day I'd be hosting a podcast with Kayley Harris from 6H, the first thing I probably would have said was, what's a podcast?
Yeah.
Second thing was, girl germs, no return.
That's right. Remember when that was a thing? We should introduce ourselves. So I'm Kayley Harris.
Yeah, and I'm Guy, and Kayley's the girl that used to probably copy my homework.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yep. Yeah. And we know each other as far back as primary school, Epping West Public School, up right on there on Carlingford Road. And we realised when we were starting to put together this podcast that next year will be our 50th anniversary reunion. Since we left year 6.
I know, doesn't it? That just knocks you over the fence for 6, doesn't it? Because it only seems like yesterday we're trying to navigate who to play with or Devon and tomato sauce sandwiches. And here we are diving headfirst into a podcast about being over 60. So where'd that time go?
I know. It's just, and it seems to be speeding up, right? Time is speeding up as we're getting older, and you and I both turning 60, obviously, this year. And I don't know about you, but I think one of the reasons we wanted to do this podcast was because 60, I've never been fazed by age. I wasn't bothered by 30, 40, 50, whatever. And I embraced it. And I was, this age is great. It's better that aging is better than the alternative.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
And for some reason, 60 is not, I'm struggling with it a little bit. I'm sort of, wow, I'm 60. I can park in the seniors parking now at Westfield, and I've got a seniors card and like one of those Opal gold card thingies. And there's good things about that, but wow.
I know.
Do people treat you differently when they find out you're 60?
Yeah, look, spoiler alert too. There's no rule books about, turning 60 and what you're supposed to be or who you're supposed to be. And it's a bit like back in the day, should you go for a sunny boy or a glug? But not a Raz, because no one really went to Raz.
I was going to say the Raz. I love the Raz, except you end up with a red mouth after little lunch.
That could be alluring in your 60s. I don't know. But you're right. You get your gold card, you get your seniors parking, and I don't know what to think. We all feel like we're still 16.
Yeah, I don't kind of feel 16. I feel sort of 30, like mentally. I don't feel 6. My body certainly doesn't feel 30. But you feel like the same as you did back then, kind of, but with caring less about what people think about you. Is that fair enough?
Yeah. It puts on your perspective too on your parents and how you view your parents, because all of a sudden you're there, and how you feel and those memories that sort of sitting in the back of your skull, all of a sudden you think, maybe how I looked at my parents, they were just young people at heart.
Yep.
But we never saw it because that outside is so telling, isn't it?
Yeah, and also with aging, you can't practice. I don't know how to be old. Not something I could sit down and work on before it happened. I'm just making it up as I go along, and just what does this look like? What does it look like on me? How do I feel about it? And how do I want the next phase of my life to look?
Mm-hmm. And it's because society and culture is changing as well. I don't know how we're perceived by younger people, and it doesn't really matter. But, you hear, 60 is the new 40 but I've got this opinion that anyone over the age of 25 to a young person is relatively old anyway. So, but when you see 90-year-olds jumping out of aeroplanes.
I love that.
Oh, How good's that?
I love that. I want to be that 100-year-old or that 90-year-old that does things like them. I probably won't, but I would love to think that I would be that person doing those things.
We can only hope, because I'd say the alternative is not very palatable.
Mm,
So I don't know.
exactly.
But
Yeah.
Epping West.
Epping West. Okay, let's go back. And I'm sure everybody's primary school was the same in the 70s. So we're talking 70s. And you've got a much better recollection of it than I do. You were telling me our teacher's name was Mrs. Hamilton, and I'd completely forgotten what her name was. And some of the names, and you remember some of the other kids, and I can probably remember 2 or 3, but you remembered so many other kids and so many of the teachers.
Yeah. Is that dangerous though? Because you can remember your kindergarten teacher. You can remember your second class teacher. Should I mention her name? Well,
Yeah.
Mrs. Stewart from second class, and Miss Chaffers
gosh.
Welsh from
See, how did-
first class, and then you got Miss Dunning and Mr. Donnellan, who was like a unicorn as far as male teachers were concerned. And then like the guy that would put you on detention, who was a year 5 teacher that I never had, was Mr. Nusafora, and I only remembered his name because he told me his first name once, and I thought that's the same as me.
Really?
How special's that? Yeah.
And you got
So,
detention
yeah.
in primary school. Wow, that's really cool. I didn't. What did you get it for?
I don't even remember why. I don't even remember. I had to stand next to the wall. For the entire lunchtime, and I stood next to the wrong wall.
Oh,
So he came up to me and he said, "Look, son, where were you?" And I said, "Oh, it's over there." And he said, "You were supposed to be standing over there. You didn't listen to me. Do you want to have it again tomorrow?" And I thought, no, it was the middle of summer. It was stinking hot. And that's the other thing. The way that teachers would have treated kids back in the day compared to now, completely different.
we had a teacher in year 4, and I won't mention any names, no name shaming, but this particular teacher was very old school. And one of the other girls in my class, Simone, and I were very, very close, and we used to sit together and wouldn't shut up. And I remember her coming up one day. She was so sick of us talking, and she grabbed Simone by the hair and me by the hair, and she banged our heads together. But unfortunately, big chunk of Simone's hair came out, and then Simone's dad was up at the school the next day. And to us, we deserved it. We were being naughty kids. We weren't listening. We were talking amongst ourselves, and we deserved it. And it wasn't till we went to high school and a private girls' school, we found out the teachers aren't allowed to hit you. I was like, what? Teachers can't hit you? Oh my gosh. When did this become a thing? Because you would remember as a boy too, in primary school, I don't know whether you ever got the cane. A lot of people our age would remember it.
I was more, how many more gold stars can I get on my merit certificate on a Friday, because my sand shoes had Kiwi white put on them in time for whatever. But I remember like a couple of boys in the hat room. Who calls it a hat room anymore either?
Wait, there was a hat room?
A hat room, yeah, it was where you put your
hat?
school bag and whatnot. But they were called hat room. And I'm thinking, wow, like we didn't have to wear hats. I'm not sure why it was called a hat room.
Well, that's the other thing. These days the kids can't go out and play at lunchtime without a hat on. We didn't have hats on. I don't remember ever having a hat on in the playground.
No, at all.
Yep.
And I remember in year 4, 3 boys went into the hat room and they got the cane. And that was a thing. Or if you really you'd be going up to the headmaster, up towards where the library was back in the day. And
you would remember the headmaster's name, I bet.
100%. Do I need to say Mr. Jews? Oh.
There you go. I knew you'd know it. You have the most extraordinary memory.
But I had to remember that too, because, it's really embarrassing. You're a sporty, adventurous, outgoing sort of girl back in the day, and you're into everything. Yeah.
You sure you're talking about me?
Sorry. But yeah, like it seems everyone had a role, whether you're a captain or a prefect or a sports captain. But when we were younger, do you remember having to drink warm milk?
I don't. I know it was a thing, but I don't remember doing it.
Yeah.
But you do. You have memories of that. And the milkman would bring it really early in the morning, and by the time you had to drink it, it was warm.
Yeah, it was. If you were a milk boy, and you could only be a milk boy if you knew, in year 2, the milker would bring it in the crates, and by the time play lunch, little lunch, recess back in the day, it would be in the middle of summer. It's like 11 o'clock, 11:15. It's been sitting out forever, and
Oh, no.
you had to line up around the quadrangle there, and you weren't allowed to go and play until you'd finished your milk.
Oh, Oh, gosh.
So,
My kids throwing up or...
well, yeah, that's the thing. And, because then you'd drink it and you'd go run crazy. And,
Yeah.
And
in the middle of summer.
in the middle of summer. And, of course, that was back in the day where you had to drink the milk. And these days, you got the lactose intolerant kids, let alone running around drinking warm milk. And that's right.
The gluten-free kids and the...
Which puts a whole new spin on like school canteen items these days too, doesn't it?
Well, let's talk about that, because you mentioned before about the Razzes and the Glugs and all those sorts of things. And across the road from our school, there was a milk bar. And what was the name of the guy that owned it?
That was Mr. Perry.
There you go. I knew you'd know. And I remember going in there before school, and you'd be able to hand over 10 cents to get 10 cents worth of mixed lollies, and you'd get a decent bag for 10 cents.
Absolutely.
Like you'd get some caramel butters, some freckles, some chocolate buttons.
Don't. Stop.
Remember those?
Stop.
Milk bottles.
Stop.
It was so good.
And poor Mr. or Mrs. Perry, and you'd be pointing in the little glass cabinet, oh, look, I need 2 milk bottles and teeth. And,
the teeth.
Caramel buttons.
And the banana?
Bananas. Oh.
And it was just the best, wasn't it, to go to school with this little bag of mixed lollies that you just seem to get so many of them for such a small, what we consider these days a small amount of money.
It's no wonder you had so many friends. Like,
I was over at Mr. Perry's every morning before school.
Yeah, like even at the school canteen, like you look at some of the things that we used to have, like chocolate bread and...
Now, hey, I don't remember the canteen at school. I don't. What was chocolate bread?
Chocolate, it was basically Nutella, but it was just Nutella smeared over slices of bread, and kids used to love it, and I was never a chocolate bread sort of guy. I was more if there were twisties or, I think I was allowed a lunch order once a week, and, it was always the same. It was probably, like a pie or a sausage roll or something really exotic.
Yeah.
But whether it was like there was twisties and all those sort of things that you had, your paddle pops and there were finger buns, and I think I don't even know what's on the school canteen list these days, but I'm pretty sure not a lot of that's actually sitting there.
No, I think it's pretty healthy these days, what was on the school canteen. But I remember the chocolate and caramel space food sticks.
Oh.
Those sorts of things were there. And but the other thing I want to mention, I don't know if you remember this, but we used to have, I think it was called square dancing at school. And the boys would all get in a big circle in the playground, facing inwards, and the girls would get inside the circle facing the boys, and you do a bit of a dance, like couple of steps in front of a boy, and then you'd move on to the next boy.
That's it. I remember.
Do you remember that?
We used to do the Pride of Erin, and it used to be the Canadian 3-step or something like that, and then the girls would spin around and move on to the next boy.
That's the next boy, and you were waiting to get to the boy who you really wanted to dance with, and get away from the one that you really didn't want to be dancing with. And the one I couldn't wait to get with is now your brother-in-law.
Oh, Kayley.
Now, we've had this conversation. So Guy's brother-in-law is Rob Abrahams. And Rob was the school captain for our year at Epping West. And I thought he was so cool and the bee's knees, and I had this mad crush on him when I was 11. And, of course, Rob was 11. But to me, because he was the school captain, he seemed so mature and so grown up.
Oh,
but he was 11.
Only you knew.
But to me, it was like, wow.
If only you knew.
Oh.
And I mean,
how is he? Tell him I said hi.
Not only got a direct line to him then, because I was vice captain of the school.
You were? Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't notice you because I was too busy looking at Rob, probably.
You were just starstruck by this, this handsome young man that had power and authority. He had it all going, didn't he?
He seemed so cool and so important because he was the school captain.
Yeah, he's still pretty cool. I'll say he's still pretty cool for a brother-in-law.
He's still pretty cool.
Yeah, for a brother-in-law. Yeah, I don't know whether I'm past the probation period yet, as far as So I still,
in the family.
I still have to say that he's pretty cool, but he's, he's doing well.
Yeah.
So but yeah, it was just one of those things too. Like, and if you got sort of stuck with that girl or that boy, you'd hear this massive at the end of it.
The other thing I remember was, do you remember at school they had the old-fashioned school bell? that we used to get rung when school started at whatever time it was, 9 or 9:15 or 9:15, whatever, and then it would get rung again at the end of lunchtime to tell us to go back in the classroom, and it would get rung again at the end of the day. And you had the opportunity to be able to ring the bell. And I finally, after 2 years of asking, it was my turn to ring the school bell at the end of lunch. And I'm standing there, and it was people who, our age will certainly remember this. It was an actual bell on a frame, and you got a stick like a broomstick, and you would put it into this little thing, and you would push it up like that, and the bell would ring. Anyway, I'm standing there 10 minutes early, waiting for the time and waiting, and just before it was supposed to be rung, this other kid in our class ran up, grabbed the stick off me, whacked me with it, and then rang the bell. And I was so upset. I don't know who the kid was, and I certainly don't have any bad feelings about it now, but I just remember this. I'd waited so long. That's the way school was back then, There was the kids were like that. They were sort of, I guess.
I'm so sorry, Kayley. I didn't realise that it meant that much to you when I took that stick away.
It was you.
I do remember the stick and being able to ring the bell. I think we must have all got a turn at some stage.
I think we all got a turn. I didn't get my turn after that, but it was amazing.
There's some unresolved issues going on here, isn't there?
I think so. I think we can air them all now on the podcast.
I think given the school it's 50 years, didn't you say, next year?
Yep.
Yeah. Is there an opportunity maybe just to make amends for that and maybe ring the bell if it's still there?
Let's pop down to the school next year for our 50th anniversary, and I'll see if the bell's still there, I'll give it a ring. I'll feel better.
Yeah. Look, I think you've waited long enough. I think it's fair. We just need to find a stick now, and
that's right.
Hopefully that other kid isn't there. Maybe it's just you and I.
Maybe it was Rob. I don't remember. Yeah.
I'll ask him.
Okay.
I'll ask him. He'll deny it.
This episode of The Big 60 brought to you by Louis Carr Real Estate, helping people in the Hills District find their dream home since 1992. Ready to buy, sell or rent? Check out louiscarr.com.au for all your property needs.
You talk about the bell ringing and it obviously you go into your classroom and then you've got your recess, or I think it used to be called play lunch at the time.
Little lunch,
lunch
or was it?
Yeah, whatever it was, and then you'd rush out. And I was thinking the other day about some of those games that we used to play at school at Epping West, and the things that probably just aren't around anymore, like jacks and elastics and all that things.
What was the point of jacks? What was it? What were we trying to do with jacks? Was it like you put them in your hand and then you threw them up and quickly turned your hand over?
Yeah, like there was.
What was the point of it? I don't understand. I don't remember.
I'm sure it was a dexterity thing. I mean, you're a legend at school if you could get I think it was like thread the needle or under the arch, and then there was overhand onesies and overhand twosies and all those sort of things, and it had its 15 minutes of fame, and then you'd go back and then it'd be either. See, I never understood elastics. Did I?
I think that was a girl thing.
Yeah,
because we all had elastics in our hair, so I think elastics was, and you'd try and sort of thread them through and do this business with them. And
no, the great big bits of elastic used to put on a pole and
that one, yeah.
Was it called elastics? And you used to jump on the girls used to jump on the elastic and then jump off, and then you.
Oh gosh, I can't remember. Remember, like skipping, and you'd have two people, one each, and you had to skip, and then they'd go really fast, and you'd have to try not to trip over the skipping rope. And I tripped over it every time. I wasn't very. But I was very unco.
Would you? I don't quite remember it that way, but you. Do you remember that you talk about like sporting things? Do you remember what house you were in at school?
Wouldn't have a clue.
Oh.
I think the colour was green.
Oh, you would have been in kookaburras then.
What were the other options?
There were kookaburras, currawongs, rosellas and kingfishers.
No, I have no idea. I can't remember. I can't remember.
Oh my gosh! Do you remember the sports carnivals, the swimming carnivals at all?
No,
or were you just too much of a sporting legend that you were just so?
Where did we go for the swimming carnival? I don't remember.
That was down at Dents Park at Epping.
Oh, of course, yeah. No, I don't remember. I remember swimming down at Dents Park, but not as part of the carnival, I don't think.
Oh, you must have been in the zone, elite athletes
absolutely.
all are.
Well,
yeah.
that's right, yeah.
and it's like marching in lines and in unison. You'd practice marching around the YMCA oval at Epping as
That's
part
right.
of the school sports carnival.
Yeah.
So, I don't think does anyone really do that? I mean, they don't do it at the Olympics. They just wander in as a rabble.
Yeah. I don't know. And I think there was a handball game we used to play, and everyone tells me it's called handball, but for some reason when we were at school it was called KP.
I know.
Do you remember that? What did that stand for?
Someone told me it stood for King Ping.
All you needed was a tennis ball and a bit of chalk to draw a line, and the whole point was to keep hitting the ball back to the other person, the tennis ball, and people would do fancy moves and they'd do it under their leg and behind them, and I was never that clever at it, but
yeah, I remember KP. It was that was a favourite as far as lunchtime. But then if it was, once again, if it wasn't your thing, you'd go and play Horsings back on the oval.
Horsings?
Or what British Bulldog. Where did that came from? Do you remember that?
What was that? No,
you just had
British Bulldog?
You had one kid standing in the middle of you'd have a dozen kids on one side and another dozen kids, and you just run. You just run and try and get to the other side.
Oh,
and
okay.
the kid in the middle would try and tackle you.
Oh, okay.
And sort of and maim you. I don't know why it was called British Bulldog.
Because that's maybe what a British Bulldog would do.
Yeah,
my
it should have been called Sniper or something because, and that was the thing, because all these games now, I mean, I don't think kids are allowed to run on the asphalt, or as it was drummed into me, asphalt by one teacher.
Asphalt.
Asphalt.
Oh, okay.
And because you'd come home with grazed knees and elbows and,
But we did all the time and it didn't seem to be an issue, and, that was just part of growing up, wasn't it? You grazed elbows, you had a bit of a cry and mum would stick the Band-Aid on or the teacher would or whatever, and you go home and that was the end of that. But
it was just a mark of, your bravery or coming off the monkey bars or whatever.
Oh, the monkey bars, hanging upside down on the monkey bars, that was always great fun.
Yeah. How more kids didn't do more damage, I don't know.
I know. And you talked about tunnel ball and captain ball. Now, tunnel ball I remember because all the kids would stand in a line with their legs spread and you'd throw the ball. The person at the front would shoot it down to the person at the back. Correct me if I'm wrong here. And then the person at the back would come running up to the front and then they'd do it. Is that right?
You've nailed that.
Okay.
You're obviously a tragic.
Very pointless game. And captain ball was similar, except the captain would stand out the front facing the queue and then throw the ball to one person. That person would run down the back and then he'd throw it to the next person and back.
Yeah.
Have I got that right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think they used to, you'd throw it and
you
then
should
that
know,
person
you're
would,
the captain.
That person would duck down and then throw it to the next person. They'd duck down. And then when you got to the very end, the last person would catch it and run up to the front, and the person throwing it then stood at the front of the queue, and then it'd start again. Where did those games come from? And at what point were they not cool?
We played them for hours on end. And so what was medicine ball then?
Oh,
medicine ball, I remember, was a really big, heavy ball.
Yeah.
But I don't remember what we were supposed to do with it. Someone will know. Someone will send us a message.
Yeah, someone will. It's like rounders. Did you ever play rounders?
No, what's that?
It's sort of like a cross between. It's. I think some of the people used to call it continuous cricket, and basically what it was is that they used to put a garbage bin in the middle, and you had a cricket bat, but it wasn't, and any kid could throw the ball to you, and it would have to try and hit the bin. But if you hit the ball, you had to go around a base and come back to the bin before someone threw the ball at the bin. And surely captain ball, tunnel ball, medicine ball games continue. Surely they're cool again. I mean, it's been long enough, isn't it?
Yeah, I think bring them back. But I also think, these days, as you know, recently mobile phones have been banned from a lot of schools in New South Wales, and I think it's a good thing. Because those games and things, I mean, I know I'm sounding my age and young people are probably rolling their eyes at me now, but we made stuff up in the playground, and we just played with whoever was available, whatever group it was. And these games that just seemed, and the lunch breaks seemed to go so fast because we were so busy frantically running around playing chasings or those sort, or tag or whatever. And these days, I worry that kids are sort of in their phones a bit too much and not doing those sorts of things that we got up to at school.
Yeah, it a completely different era, but it taught you resilience. It taught you sort of social skills as well, where, if you didn't get on with someone but they were playing KP or captain ball or whatever it is, you sort of had to get along. And yeah, look, there's sort of those schoolyard barneys that went on, but seriously, I mean, there's a lot of challenges that kids have to confront these days purely on the basis of social media and all those sort of things. And back in our day, did we want our parents or anyone else to know where we were after school or whatever? No, I mean, it's just done that whole 180 where everyone wants to know where everyone is and what everyone's doing. And of course, you know, if we were rolling down hills or a bit of cardboard on a steep grassy slope and that was just a whole lot of fun all of a sudden, and then you'd get home and mum would say, where did you get all those grass stains from? And they'd never come out. But these days, every 10 minutes, oh, here I am doing this or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think you're right.
I think that, you know, kids, if you were having trouble with somebody at school, call it bullying, whatever, you'd go home and it would stop.
Yeah.
Because you were home. But these days it doesn't stop, and that makes it really difficult for a lot of children. It can be a real issue when kids are being bullied on social media or on their phones because they've got access to them. And I'm not against the mobile phones at all. I think that's just the way of the world right now. And one thing I do feel, though, with the internet and with that technology, it's the one thing our generation could not teach our children about. We could teach them how to drive a car, ride a bike, cook food, whatever. The internet and that technology, we will always be playing catch up. Always. They'll always be one step ahead of us. That's the world that they live in. It's, you know, that's the way it is. And I think it's better for us to try and adjust to it and try and keep them safe in that space, because it's not going away, whether we like it or not, whether we think it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's not going away. We just have to try and manage it. But we will never be, I don't think, as good as our kids are with the technology. I know I won't be.
No, look, I think when it comes to other things like whether we can play the glockenspiel in percussion or the cymbals or you know, even fashion trends, like, you know, but I think that's probably discussion for another day, because Mum told me that I actually have to be home before the street lights come on, so I better
Time to go.
I better go. Hey, do you want to come round to my place next time?
I'd love to.
Yeah, because Mum said that she's going to buy some tang and maybe some honey jumbles. So
I'll be there with Belle. I'll ask my mum. Okay.
Okay. Well, I'll see you then.
Okay.
But just before I go, hey, boys are strong like King Kong. We don't have to say that anymore.
See you next time. Yes, you can.
Okay.
See you next time.
I'll see you later. Bye.
The views and opinions expressed on the Big 6-0 are personal and reflect those of the hosts and guests. They do not represent the views or positions of any affiliated organisations or companies. This podcast is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as professional advice. Please consult with a qualified professional for guidance on any personal matters.